Hey, what's up, everybody? It's that time of the week again. And this week, I'm interviewing the former Secretary of Defense. We cover his military background and some of the decisions that he had to make as Secretary of Defense. Ladies and gents, if you get anything out of these interviews, please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Some of you know we also have a Clips channel, Shawn Ryan Clips. And if you can't do that, please head over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Leave us a review. Tell us who you'd like to see on the show and how we're doing. Patreon, thank you for all the support. It's because of you guys that this show rolls on. It really, really is. In fact, the team is expanding because of you, new equipment because of you, and we may have a potential new studio because of your support. So much love to you. Thank you for being our top supporters. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Chris Miller to the Shawn Ryan Show. Chris Miller, welcome to the show.
I can't believe I had to write a book to get on your show, Shawn.
I can't believe I'm sitting across from a former SecDef.
Please. I did my research, of course. I've heard, obviously knew about you. Did my research before, went through their 53 podcasts. You've got more in the can, I know, but 53 are posted. I didn't look at every single one of them. Looked at a lot of them. And like legendary figures, and I can't believe I'm here with you. Seriously, I'm just like kid from Iowa, and here I am on your podcast, number 10 in the country. Let's get this. We're gonna get this thing juiced. Of like, what do you think? Can we get to 2 or 3 on this one?
Hey, we'll see what happens. We are currently sitting at the number 10 slot on Spotify, and out of all categories in the country.
Congrats.
Which I believe there's over 8 billion podcasts. So we're
good. Everybody and their sister has a doggone podcast right now, and you're number 10. It's got to be really rewarding. Hey, can I go off script for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for being a veteran. Thanks for serving. But more importantly, thank you for being an example of what veterans can do, because a lot of us get out and the military is kind of beat into our head that we're only good at one thing, being in the military. I think they do that on purpose, actually. I think like if you're a business person, you'd like, I don't want to incentivize these people to leave after I spent millions of dollars on training them. I get them all this experience and this leadership. I send them all over the world, and then they just get up and go away. So I think there's the incentive structures built to keep people in for 20 plus years. You had the courage to leave the service after your initial couple tours, and you're showing people that veterans, like, hey, you can do things other than the old, I'll go be a contractor for Booz Allen. I'll go, work at, do security work and all that. You've done that, I know, and that's important. I think it's really important to know, like, the first job you get when you leave the service is not the job that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And you know how we were raised like, I went into the Navy, you went in the Navy, I went in the Army, and you stick with them, and then you have one employer, right? That's not how the world works once you get out. So that first job is not the one that is going to be your last job. And you, my friend, have threaded the needle. I think Navy SEALs do it a heck of a lot better than the rest of us, but your journey is, to me, is an example of how talented veterans are. And dude, you're self-taught. Like, yeah. Did you go to film school? Did I miss that in your resume? Did you go to film school?
No, I didn't.
You didn't go to Columbia? You didn't go to UCLA?
They wouldn't let me in there.
They will now.
I went to a community college for a year.
Well, I had a buddy. I got out. 2014, left government. I enlisted in the Army in 1983 in the Army Reserve. 17 years old, got out of high school, wanted to serve. Uncles had served. My dad had served. I was just like, I guess you serve. I didn't know any better. You just serve, right?
Yeah.
What do you do now? Like, I guess I joined the military. I was going to college too, so I went into the reserve, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks during the year. And did that, retired in 2014. Go into details if you want. Stayed in government, though, because I didn't know anything else and I needed a job. So I just basically took off my uniform one day, showed back up at the office the next day wearing, well, it was a little later, wearing a crappy suit from Joseph A. Banks. So I got 5 of those things for like $200, man, because I didn't have any money, right?
Yeah.
So showed back up. And then I finally get done with government in 2014 at 12:01 on the 20th of January, 2021, when the administration changed. I was the acting Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon. You walk out 1 minute after noon because officially the new president gets sworn in at 12 noon. President Biden went like 3 minutes early. So I had 3 minutes where I really didn't have a job and just sit around yucking it up with the people. Walked out, didn't have any job, didn't know what I was doing. And I met a Green Beret buddy of mine from 5th Special Forces Group, Scotty Neal. He runs Horse Soldiers Bourbon. I didn't want to talk to him, but I ran into him because he's busy. He owned this restaurant in St. Petersburg. I forgot the name of it. Really nice place. Went in there. I was like, wow, this is nice. Ran into him and I said, wow, this is a really nice place. He goes, Chris, what did you expect? That it was going to be half-assed because I'm a Green Beret? I said, well, yeah, actually, I thought it would be kind of half-assed. I was like, yeah, I mean, I thought it'd be good enough. He goes, we're a premium brand. We're a top shelf brand. Everything I have to do, everything we do has to reinforce that brand. And at that point, I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about. I said, how'd you learn this? He goes, spent 1 year asking questions, listening. Hey, so when you're making bourbon, why do you do it that way and not this way? When you're asking the bank for a loan, why do you structure it this way? So I was just Green Beret, asking questions, listening. Said after 1 year, I figured it out. And I was like, okay, it's time to go. And I thought about that. So I gave myself a year just to learn. And you kind of did the same thing, I think. Did you feel the same way with when you decided to go into this business? How long did it take before you decided, like, I'm starting to figure this out?
It probably took about a year. I am very big on self-reliance. And
I noticed you do everything here, man.
Yep, I do.
I know you have a staff now.
I have a staff now. I have a very small team. We're very extreme. My team's like a family. Nobody gets in or out of here. Once you're in the circle, you don't leave unless you do something really bad. But I work with. I'm not the kind of guy that if you show up and you fuck something up, I kick you out. I'm going to work with you. In fact, sometimes my team gets a little annoyed with me because once I invest in you, I'm going to continue to invest in you.
I suspect that somewhere in your career, maybe in the Navy, somebody said, I'm going to give this guy another chance. I just suspect. And then that kind of was ingrained into your leadership ethos. I'm guessing.
Well, I wish you were right, but maybe a couple times at the agency, but not in the teams, not really much in the agency, and that's something that I learned is that shit doesn't work. Just going through people because I see potential in people, and I want to bring that potential out, and I would rather invest my time and work to bring that potential out than just kick them to the fucking curb like everybody else does, and it worked, But as far as starting my business, I'm like your guy that you were just talking about that started the whiskey bourbon company. He sounds like he's an observer. I'm also an observer. I observe what everybody's doing. I see that 99% of the population goes one direction, like a bunch of sheep, and I find something to make everything that I do different than what everybody else is doing. And so that's kind of how I built it. And and I don't have the money. Like I said, when I was talking about self-reliance, I didn't have the money to hire a crew, and when we moved up here from South Florida, I had one film crew that it was extremely affordable, but then it was flying them up here, putting them in hotels, and that just wasn't sustainable for the income I was making. So I flew them up one time. I made them teach me everything that they knew about cameras and video editing, which I knew nothing about. And they gave me a very basic baseline about it. And then it was YouTube University, and it started with a 2-camera setup on the first show and my wife was running back and forth because the cameras that we had were cheap and they had a 30-minute time limit. So
she's running back and forth.
So I'm talking
rebooting this crap.
I'm talking to my friend Mike Glover, and she's running back and forth resetting cameras. If he was talking, she would reset mine. If I was talking, she would reset his. I'm running the sound while I'm trying to interview him. And then that went into a 3-camera setup, and then into a 4-camera setup. What are we at now,
man? I don't even know.
4 to 5. 4 to 5.
Well, you got like secret cameras all over this place?
Sometimes I have a guy that'll come in and do some gimbal, like some moving shots.
Hey, you know what you need to do next?
What's that?
Drones. You should have like inside here. Hey, I'm just saying.
We thought about doing
inside. You could have get a micro drone.
Yeah, they have these 360 cameras. We thought about maybe doing a 360 camera setup so people can see.
Oh, you could do the lines too, like NFL games.
Oh, that's
you
a good
could
idea.
string. That's probably better than the drone, because the drone you're going to have that buzz.
You're probably.
Hey, I'm sorry.
That's a good
I'm sorry.
idea.
This is your show, and I'm already doing. Hey, 2 things. So, thanks for showing what veterans can do. Thanks for helping veterans out now. Third thing, you brought up a great leadership point about underwriting people. And that first episode, I went last night. I'm a little tired now because I got addicted to watching your podcasts. And your first one with Glover, I never worked with him, but you had a kid on there that you had mentored. Mm-hmm. That you were like the kid with the beard you talked about, remember? And you had him on your cell phone where he called in and talked to Glover. It was really, really cool, man. That was really awesome. Yeah. So, man, that hurts though. That hurts. Like, not again, man. Did you really do that again?
Yeah. I appreciate the compliment and bringing light to what I'm doing here. I really appreciate it. And to elaborate on it, I think, and not just special operations veterans, just veterans across the board. I don't think the civilian population understands the drive and determination and how quick veterans are to pick up what it is they're doing and run with it, especially if they're driven and they like what they're doing. And I don't think veterans give themselves enough credit either. The drive and the determination and the loyalty, that you can get from
work ethic
from veterans. We tend to discredit ourselves a lot.
You got any theory why that is? Like, in my book, I highlight only 7% of Americans are veterans now. I think that's a great problem to have, by the way. Isn't that great? Like, we're not an armed society anymore. So I'm not like, only 7. This is ridiculous, But that does create a gap, because probably back in the day, like in the 50s, 60s, I'm guessing 50%, 45% of Americans, probably higher than that, either had served or were a family member of somebody who had served either in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. And there's an understanding about how the military worked, and the things that you talk about, people intuitively knew. And now I think that's really incumbent on us, is to share our experiences. And I know I don't like to talk about myself, man. I know that's crazy. I'm on your podcast. I hate talking about myself. And I speak for one veteran. I don't speak for any other veterans community. I speak for myself. But I wonder right now, it seems like there's a disconnect with what you said. Like, the American public We're not all crazed, psychopaths. We're just Americans, and sure, we volunteer to serve. 99%, as you know, 99% of serving in the military is absolutely a gas. So much fun, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, come on, deploying, pretty good life. 1% gets 1% really kind of, the scales even out on that one. But that's all right. That's what the nation asked us to do. But I wanted to ask you, what can we do better to show the American public and people that are hiring, no, this is the right person to invest in? Because I'm telling you, there's this undercurrent in a lot of places that, do we want to take the risk on bringing this veteran in? He could go crazy.
Yeah.
There is out there.
Oh, I know.
We're not supposed to talk about that, though.
Yeah. The
Shawn,
police departments, the government agencies, any government organization. It's been leaked. That, especially during the Obama administration, that the veteran resumes go at the bottom of the stack. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. That's not conspiracy bullshit. That is a fact. It's been a long time coming, but we've put a lot of thought into this, and Vigilance Elite Peril is finally back. Over the past year, we've been hard at work refining the look. Email has been an invaluable source for us. We've tested various materials and styles to unveil a fresh collection featuring our heavyweight tees. Each tee comes with a custom screen-printed neck label and a woven hem label for that extra touch of quality that's really going to stand out. Responding to your mail calls, we went with two different flannels. One is a traditional OD green and the other being a traditional charcoal black. If I was to pick one of the two, I would go with the charcoal black. These not only embody the rugged Vigilance Elite spirit, but also sport custom woven neck labels and woven pocket labels for a distinctive edge. On to our most sought after item, hats. Introducing two never-before-seen styles, we have the Midnight Edition Dad Cap featuring the iconic Vigilance Elite logo and a flex fit cap adorned with both the logo and lettering. But that's not all. We're bringing some of your favorite Vigilance Elite classic hats back, one being the Vigilance Elite Snapback and the other being the Vigilance Elite Flex Fit variants. Our stock is limited. This isn't about creating scarcity. This is just a simple fact. By the time you're watching this, our Patreon tiers 3 and 4 have already enjoyed 24-hour access. I just want to personally say thank you for your unwavering patience, and it's going to be a very exciting 2024 as we continue to bring you more from Vigilance Elite. And, but to show people, I don't know how you bring that out. I guess things like this show, but I mean, look at one thing that I like to talk about, or actually I have never talked about it publicly, but look at all of the vetrepreneurs out there and how fast some of these companies have found success. I mean, I'm a hard worker. I'm very determined. We now have a top 10 podcast in the country out of over 8 million podcasts. Mike Glover with Fieldcraft Survival, Black Rifle Coffee. There's tons of veteran entrepreneurs that have just taken off. And just think, and this is after an entire career of going to war and serving this country, and we're already rising to the top of the food chain again, starting a completely new career that we know nothing about. I don't know shit about business. I still don't think I know shit about business, and I'll bet if you ask all these other guys that are, DJ Shipley, who's running GBRS, that's only a couple years old. He's the top trainer, top tactics and tactician in the country right now, couple years old. Rose right through the ranks like it was nothing, blew past everybody. Travis Kennedy, very successful business. David McCormick, CEO Bridgewater, former
Never heard of
veteran.
them. They make any money at Bridgewater? No, I watched that one. I was like, you got David McCormick?
Sold his initial company for $500 million at age 37. Just talked to another guy. He's not a veteran, but wanted to be a SEAL. Then did some stuff with the agency. Sold a company at age 29 for $4 billion. Now he's making these energy weapons. So he's not technically a veteran, but he did serve the government. He did serve the country. Excuse me. I think he did some stuff with NSA maybe or CIA, but anyways, you watch these guys just hit the ground running and rise so fast. Just think if we would have never gone to war and we would have just been entrepreneurs the entire time.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much help did you get from other veterans?
From other veterans?
How much help did you get when you decided to go off and leave government service? I got 2 calls. It's really nice. They were both 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment guys, both very successful. They called me, said, hey, they were the only 2 people. I didn't get anybody from my community. Like, I kind of thought, shit, kind of put the work in. Kind of nice if somebody called.
Yeah.
Nope. Had to figure it out myself. And that's where I'm really committed. I don't do it well, and I probably every day feel guilty for not doing more. But our generation of veterans is different. I've noticed, and you've seen this. I love the American Legion, love the VFW, very hierarchical, top-driven organizations. They did unbelievable work for veterans in America. Our generation, I'm a different generation than you. I should say our generation of veterans, it seems to me, I've noticed, it's very much more organic. It's very much more bottom-up. It's very much more collaborative. And we don't need some hierarchical top-down thing. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. I think it's also, I think it's very detrimental to our community, but I think that the competitiveness within the veteran community is way more competitive than it needs to be, whereas if we could come together, we could run this shit,
I've stumbled in because we think a lot the same way, and I'm like, how come we have 3 special forces charitable organizations? They're all balkanizing. They're all trying to recruit off the same population. They're all balkanizing the donor base. You just described it. It's like hyper competitive. And I'm like, why don't we have one group?
Where do you think the competitiveness comes from?
Of course, it's in our DNA, right? Yeah. I know. Because that's a good point. And that's something I always try to take into consideration is like, these are the things that made us extremely successful as an army, as a special operations force, a military service. That is exactly it. So how do you use that for more positive reasons? And maybe you just can't do it. I'm literally at the point now, like maybe it's just Sisyphus, pushing the rock up the hill. I mean, maybe you just don't do it.
I think it's just,
Navy SEALs got their stuff right. I mean, it was a food fight when they merged their 2 organizations. Like, I'm sure there are people. I know it was a huge emotional issue, but you finally got it together, and I think you guys do it really, really well. But oh man, somebody should do a Netflix series about that.
If only you could see it from the inside. But
well, good on you that you keep it inside.
Yeah. I think it could be changed just by leading from example. I've always been raised to root for the underdog and lift people up that are lagging behind, and maybe that'll come back around in the future, but not a lot of people do that because they see other vets as competition. And I think a lot of guys get left behind and they don't get the exposure they deserve because the space is so competitive. And I personally think that competitiveness, I can't say that for all the veterans. I can say that for special operations veterans because that's our community, right? But I feel that the competitiveness comes from day one, week one of training, because everything is a competition. The runs are competition. The swims are competition. Who's the best shooter? Who's the best sniper? Who's the best in the kill house? Who's the best driver? Who has the most kills? Who's got the most deployments? Who's,
You're right.
And I think that, and that's what drives us and builds the camaraderie when we're in, right? But then when you come out, it just turns into a disaster.
One of my favorite aphorisms that I share with my children is, and everybody, greatest strength's your greatest weakness, right? Mm-hmm. And that competitiveness truly is. I think maybe I'd love to tease that out, because some people, I was obviously the same way, but you hit a point where you're like, no, it's about giving back now. Mm-hmm. And that happens at a different time in everybody's life. Some people are blessedly, decide this at a very early age. It wasn't that for me, because you're like, got to put food on the table, got to do well, got to do well, got to do well. Yeah. Because it's personal, professional standards. It's the way I was raised. Anything you do it the best you can, and all those things. And unfortunately, probably too late in life, I came to the conclusion, like, no, it's all about giving back now, and maybe some people just never get there. But, I'd hope that we all kind of hit that point. Because as veterans, we're growing up together now. We're all kind of out now. Handful of people still in. But what I try to share, and I try to fail to do with a lot of the people, is we got to do better than, like you said, you didn't get any help. It's like, maybe you probably didn't need it, to be perfectly honest with you. At the end of the day, I was going to figure it out myself anyhow, but it still would have been nice. It still would have been nice. I said, we got to do better than the last generation, and we can't leave people behind, man. And I don't know how to do it. I'm trying where I can. And all you can do is, like, where you sit is where you stand, right? Mm-hmm. Which I can't believe I'm sitting in this great chair. I've been watching, dude, I went so dark last night watching all of your podcasts. I'm like 2 a.m. I'm like, I need to get some sleep. It's just amazing. And of course, the legendary chair. I'm like, I'm in the legendary chair. So, okay, thanks for having me. We kind of went off script, I know, but I just wanted, one of the key themes you always bring up is veteran stuff, and it's not topical, it's not superficial, it's like for real. And I think those are the conversations that we need to have and share with other people that don't understand us.
I agree with that. Going back just real quick.
What do you got?
Real quick, you were asking at the beginning, did anybody step up and help? And the answer was no. There is one person who I've always relied on for help, though, and I'm going to give him credit. It's my best friend, David Rutherford. He's always been there to pick me up when I'm down. And
yeah. So I end up, serving. It's what I did. End up, I was asked to be I had a great gig. I was the director of the National Counterterrorism Center. And I got like sickeningly focused. I made a mistake in Iraq in 2006-07. You were there. Sauder City was a enclave of Shia militants. There was this guy named Muqtada al-Sadr. They had the Sadr they had some name for his fighting force. And you remember there was civil war going on. Every night, Shias were killing Sunnis, Sunnis were killing Shias. They called it extrajudicial violence. I called it a civil war, but that wasn't cool. They're like, we can never say it's a civil war. Heaven forbid. We tore this country apart, and now there's a civil war. We'll call it extrajudicial killings, EJK. Did you do any work on that?
No. Not that I know of.
I think you did and didn't even know it, because we were kind of, our tours there overlapped. And I just remember, like, we've got this civil war going on, and we're working it. And then, where was I going with this? I completely forgot.
A mistake.
What's that?
A mistake.
Oh, yeah. So 10th Special Forces Group, we rotate between 10th Special Forces Group out of Fort Carson. We were 5th Special Forces Group out of Fort Campbell. We just rotate every 6-8 months. And the guy I replaced, had become hyper-focused on killing this guy. I forgot his name, Haji something. He had a white camel. That's all I remember.
White camel?
White camel. I was like, white camel? This dude had a white camel, and he would feed it Coca-Cola because it's on YouTube. You can find it. I forgot this guy's name. My buddy became obsessed with killing this guy, and they go up in Sauder City every night. I got there. I'm like, hey, come on. We got to think more than just this one target. And got to be bigger picture, the way I was trained. And I realized he had the right idea. It's like, you got to get hyper-focused on one thing. So when I had the opportunity to get back into counterterrorism after I left the government, or after I left the service, it's like, we need to defeat Al-Qaeda. Everybody's like, you can't defeat terrorism. It's like, I didn't say defeat terrorism. Terrorism, noun versus verb. We can defeat Al-Qaeda. Noun. We can't defeat terrorism. Verb. Got it. Al-Qaeda is a fighting force. Definition to defeat is to render your enemy incapable of, imposing their will on you. It can be temporary state. It's not always, it's not always forever. They can bounce back. So I got fixated on that because of the mistake I'd made in Iraq, not focusing on that key leader, right? So I'm at the National Counterterrorism Center. I had been in the National Security Council, which is the staff that works for the president, right next door to the White House. I got a job from my buddy, dear friend of mine, got me the job. I was in charge of counterterrorism and transnational threats, drug, human trafficking, all that stuff, for the president. And I had this crazy idea. Always do your net assessment, right? You go in, you look at your enemy, and hey, Shawn, don't tell anybody. Oh, we're on TV. I had lost the focus on counterterrorism after I left the service. I left in 14. It's now 17, 18. So I need to get back up to speed on what the enemy's doing. Find out, focus on talking to the young intelligence analysts. Don't talk to the head people because they have to give the party line. Go down to the people that how long have you been studying this? 6 years, sir. Nobody's ever asked me a question about, whatever. Go listen to those people. Determine that there are 7 key leaders left in Al-Qaeda. Zawahiri, number 1. Go all the way through his son, Hamza. I can go through the names, but no one cares. I said, what happens if we kill those 7? Al-Qaeda ceases to exist. Remember, Al-Qaeda is like a hierarchical, charismatic-driven organization, very elite. It's like special operations, let's be honest. So you can't replace special operators quick. Al-Qaeda was the equivalent of special operations, extremely elite, well-trained, loyal, etc. So what happens if we kill off these 7? They're like, well, Al-Qaeda they'll be defeated. So I came up with this insanely stupid idea. I said, why don't we kill off the final 7 by the 20th anniversary of September 11th, 2001, and we'll drop the mic and declare victory and be done with this thing. I got so much pushback, but I was like, I don't care because...
Why would you get pushback from that?
You want to know what I think it was? Seriously? Bureaucracy. We had created, we talk about the military-industrial complex. We had created a counterterrorism industrial complex where budgets went to organizations. We expanded the intelligence community incredibly. I think they were I don't think it was malicious, we want this war to continue forever. I just don't think I was helpful, by saying, no, we're going to win. We don't want to go political, but, I served, 37 years in uniform or as a civilian for any president. Left, right, in between, didn't care. I spent 1 year working for President Trump. Obviously, very partisan times. We don't even have to go there. That's not your show. I got that. But, he did say, we're about winning. He did say that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, let's go win. I think there was just we had gotten so used to just the grind. You lived the grind, man.
It seemed like nobody knew what the hell the goal was, when I was in, it appeared that we were going after low-hanging fruit, and they're just, I just, and then you have this plan where you want to take out the last 7 Al Qaeda leaders, and nobody gets behind it. And it's. I've always wondered, not always. Once I left, and I started looking into all this stuff, I continue to wonder what was the goal of this.
I thought it was to win. And we came up with the plan, and I was like, let's go do this, and worked back and forth and just kept working and working at this, just grinding away, because in government, it's all about endurance. It's a war of attrition. It's like, I'm just going to outlast him, and we'll keep going on this. But, I'm just random. There was a point of where I was trying to go with this. I know I'm just like, sounds like I'm rambling. Just got absolutely fixated on this idea of defeating Al Qaeda, because I thought I did an informal survey of like tons of veterans. I was like, what do you think we should do in Afghanistan? Like, it's time to come home. And I was really worried about what those who had lost loved ones there thought, or those that had been injured. Across the board, everybody's like, we gave it our best shot. But I thought that by doing this, we could declare victory, pull out meaningfully. So that was a whole hustle. That was a whole idea of like, okay, I'm going to do this. I know it sounds ridiculous. Like, my dumb ass comes up with this idea. So we kept pushing on that. And I ended up going to the National Counterterrorism Center. I was like, this is perfect. I can have more of a role because it's higher position. But then the president was unhappy with Mark Esper, was Secretary of Defense at the time, and wanted to change. So there were only 3 of us to serve in an acting capacity. This is going to be legalistic, but it's important to understand for some people, like the 3 people that actually care about this that are listening. You have to be appointed by the president, and you have to be confirmed by the Senate, meaning you have to go up there and they wire brush you, and then they vote you out. You can't just take over a cabinet position, a high-level position, like Joe Shit the ragman off the street. You can't do that. You can, but it's not going to work. You have to be presidentially appointed, Senate confirmed. That way the Senate Congress has had their say. So there were only 3 of us. I was one of them. President called and asked that I replace him. So obviously I accepted that because that's what we do, right? Go in there, and I'm like 73 days. Like, I've been to Ranger School. Ranger School 60 days. You know this, I know, because you had some Rangers on the show. It's really good. I like that episode a lot with the Delta breacher. I forgot his name.
Chris Van Zandt.
Yeah, that was really cool. He gave a great description about the difference between being Ranger qualified and being a United States Army Ranger. I love that. Best description I've ever heard. So I'm like, I can stand on my head for 73 days. Done it for 60. Not realizing everything that was going into this that would happen. But that's how I ended up doing that. But I left. Then I left. Like, boom, you're done.
Yeah.
And I had no understanding, no idea what I was going to do, not a clue. And didn't really, like I said, I got 2 calls, and that had to figure it out myself, just like you. And just off we go. And here we start again.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out, right?
Well, let's, I haven't even given you an intro yet, so we'll start now. But, so I just want to give a brief intro just so everybody knows who you are, if they don't already. But military career, 1983 to 2014, enlisted in the Army Reserve as an infantryman in 1983, and served in the D.C. National Guard as an MP. Then you commissioned to become an officer in 1987 with a bachelor's degree in history from George Washington University. You transferred to Special Forces in 1993, honor graduate from Army Ranger School. Numerous command and staff positions within 5th Special Forces Group. Multiple deployments during the GWOT, both to Iraq and Afghanistan. company commander of 5th Special Forces in Afghanistan in 2001. Many more deployments in other theaters. I know you worked extensively with CIA in Bosnia back, I believe, in the 90s. Post-military career, defense contractor for clandestine special operations and intelligence under Secretaries of Defense for Intelligence and Policy, Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Combating Terrorism, Director of National Counterterrorism Center, former Acting Secretary of Defense, and finally the author of Soldier Secretary, Warnings from the Battlefield and the Pentagon about America's Most Dangerous Enemies, which I cannot wait to jump into that. And just some other stuff. You oversaw the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. I would love to talk about that. Oversaw personnel reductions in Iraq and Afghanistan, handled requests and questions, and testified about the January 6th response, massive activation of the National Guard members, and you took out some of the top terrorists in the world throughout your career.
And
I can breathe again. That's quite the career.
That and a quarter. Well, if you're at Starbucks, it'll be like $4.50. We'll get you a cup of coffee, man. I mean, most importantly, try to be a good husband, try to be a good father, and try to be a good American.
Yeah.
So Thanks, man. Thanks. I always get bored listening to that. It's really just, a kid from Iowa who came from a family of public servants. My dad was a cop, and my mom, he said there's intrinsic value in public service. You don't get paid a lot. And he literally answered JFK's call. He was drafted, served in the Korean War as an 11 Charlie mortarman, and really got in it. Korea War, come on, man. What did they do? A couple of years, and it was just high intensity war. And came back, and literally he said, I heard that JFK, what asked not what to do, blah, blah, blah. And he said, I'm going to go into government. I'm going to try to make a change. And he's always there's intrinsic value in public service. I took that shit to heart, So just was really incredibly fortunate to be able to serve our country, man. I know that sounds really cliche.
That's an incredible career.
Man, I just did my job, dude.
Everybody that comes on gets a gift.
What?
Well, you were up till 2 a.m. watching the show last night. Any guesses?
Nice.
Vigilance Elite Gummy Bears.
Yes.
Those are amazing. And believe it or not, they're legal in all 50 states.
Well done.
And they're made in the USA.
It's what you do.
Right?
Giving it back.
Made in the USA. You don't hear that very often anymore, right?
I really appreciate it. And my wife will be tickled pink. It's usually, because come on, Shawn, usually I go on these things, I don't walk away with lost 6 hours. Not this one though. I'm really excited about this one because you talk about things that matter and are important. And
thank you.
I don't think I have anything to add, to tell you the truth, but we'll let your audience decide when we get wow, we got 20,000 viewers. We went from 5 million last week to 20,000.
Yeah, but I do not think that's going to happen. We have a lot to talk about. I don't want to spend too much time on your career because we'll be here a week covering all of that.
Sure.
But I do want to stress some of the important things that you're a part of. So let's kind of start with where you grew up. We'll talk about some of the big missions that you did and some of the key leaders that you've taken out. And then we'll dig into some of the shit that's going on in the country and in the world today. So I know you grew up in Iowa.
Yep, Iowa City, Iowa. Spent some time on the East Coast in Newark, Delaware, moved back to Iowa City. I think it was probably 10. My parents are from there. Dad decided to go home. I think my mom probably pushed him a lot harder than that. I'm just guessing. They're still alive, 94 years old, living in Iowa. Mom still lives alone. Father has the opportunity to live at the nursing home now because he's no longer as mobile as he should be. So, but yeah, just like kind of that. I got no bad news from my youth. Like, it's bucolic, man. It was like great parents, great community. It was that like age of where you just went off and did crap all day long and your parents didn't care and you didn't have a cell phone. It was just like magical and just and then just was like, I got to get out of Iowa City, Iowa. What about you? You were in Missouri, man.
I was in Missouri.
Did you like? I just got this thing where I was like, it's a big world out there, and I was really fortunate that my parents like always instilled in my sister and me like this sense of adventure, this sense of inquisitiveness, you know, like there's a big world. I'm like, I gotta go see it. This little town's gonna be the death of me, you know. I was gonna be a Bruce Springsteen song, you know. What about you?
What about me?
Why'd you leave Missouri?
You know, I just left Missouri for the military, and I joined.
You did 17. You were 17 or 18.
Yeah, I joined at 17 in the
Had to
delayed
get your
entry
parents
program.
to sign off for you.
Yep,
Huh?
had to get my dad to sign off for it. You know, I joined them. I didn't feel like I had any other options.
Okay.
I wasn't a great student. I didn't really take sports very seriously, nor was I very good at any of them. I was pretty much into chasing women and drinking beer.
Yeah.
And
What kind of cards you have?
I had a Ford Probe.
Dude, I thought you were going to give me Trans Am.
I wish.
Man.
I had a 1982 truck that I destroyed immediately by taking off road, and then I got a Ford Probe.
You're not taking that off road
And
once.
nope. And but yeah, I didn't feel like I had any other options, and honestly, I was always drawn to the military.
Yeah, why?
So, my dad did a stint in the military when I was a young kid, 4th grade, I think he joined, and at that time the Gulf War was going on.
Yeah.
We got deployed to Germany. My dad was in the medical field, so I saw a lot of these guys coming in and out of Germany. I saw all the books. I bought all the books. I bought all the G.I. Joes, and I was
Same.
just always infatuated with
Isn't that weird?
combat.
Isn't that weird? Like
Yeah.
somehow that triggers something in some of us, and other people like
Yeah.
don't care. So I had the same thing, man. It was, you know, Vietnam had wrapped down. I was born in '65, and I remember there were only 3 TV channels then. Remember? You could get like the 4th UHF. You could get some weird thing out of Philadelphia where you could watch Speed Racer or something. But, you know, when my dad came home, it wasn't like now. My kids watch whatever they want, 2,000 channels. Watch whatever you want. In those days, the old man came home. My mom, I'm never allowed to call my dad the old man. I said that once to my mom. Only time she got upset with me. She's like, you do not refer to your father as the old man. I was like, whoa. So I take it back. Mom, my father would come home from work. And guess what? He took over the TV. You're going to watch CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite. It was like, I don't want to do homework. What are you going to do? You're going to watch the news. So I'm like, I was just this weirdo kid who was watching the news and, you know, and then you had to read the paper. That was like one of the things, like some assignment. So I'm reading like Vietnam and stuff. I'm like, holy crap. And somehow that just, you know, and then my uncles, my dad, I just like, I guess you have to serve. But it didn't, you know, it bothered me at first, you know, when you're younger and you're seeing caskets coming home with flags on them. And I remember asking my dad, I was like, what are they? I mean, flags. He goes, flags are put on caskets only if you've served. And I don't know if that's true or not. I have no idea. I don't think it's actually true. But that, you know, when you're like 5, 6 years old and you have these weird things, like that resonated. I'm like, so if I don't serve, I'm not going to have, this is the connection I made. So adolescent, you know, it just terrified the thought, but I was like, I'm going to serve. I mean, this is what we do. It's what, I don't come from a family of like, oh, you know, my great grandfather served in, in the Civil War, a Revolutionary War. As a matter of fact, my family left Germany in 1848. They were draft dodgers because that was like when like the Prussians or whoever the hell it was, fighting, and they got drafted and they're like, we're out of here. So I think it's hilarious that I come from a long line of draft dodgers. So, I always wonder, like, something triggered in us this desire to go serve. Combat, yeah, that's what we do, right? That's why would you join if that wasn't the goal? Mm-hmm. Oh, I want to get my college money. Hey, good with you if you want your college money, but you don't go into Navy SEALs or Army Special Operations if you're looking for college money, right?
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, I think it's one of those questions. I still kind of wonder about it, and then I'll tell you that the only thing that really mattered in my military career was response to September 11, 2001. I say in my book, I'd been an officer. I got commissioned in 87. Don't do public math, 13, 14 years. And I was in 5th Special Forces Group just up the road. I'm heading up there after this to see some folks. And I just, I had a really tough boss, battalion commander. I'm not going to tell you his name. He's really, really tough, man. And I was like, why am I putting up with this bullshit anymore? And I went home on the 10th of September. I swear this is a true story. We had 3 kids. They're all screwing off. My wife and I would always have a cocktail, kind of day's over, let's catch up. Man, that day I got really deep. I was probably into my 4th beer, and I said, these are small times for small people. I said, we're getting out. I'm leaving the service. My wife was like, good, about time. My wife, you're way more talented than this stupid Army crap. And of course I didn't believe her. And I literally, September 11th, I went into work and I was going to resign my commission that day. Go run. Have you been to Fort Campbell? There's this thing called Clark's. There's this thing, you got to go. You got to go up there. There's this thing called Clarksville Base. It's Cold War legacy, crazy story, won't bore you, hilarious. I'm out there with the sergeant I worked with. I was a company commander. He was a company sergeant major, just magnificent man. Went for a run, just the 2 of us. We didn't go with the unit or anything. It was our time to like talk shop, right? Got in the car and I'm driving back to work, and John Boy and Billy show. That's still on. The John Boy and Billy show is still on. It was new then. It was really this edgy, morning talk show. And they were always hooting it up and comedic and whatnot. And all of a sudden they stopped and they're like, hey, we have a report of a plane hitting one of the towers at the World Trade Center. And like the whole tone of the discussion, it went from jocular, like, fart jokes or something, to like just stopped. And it was completely, and it got serious. I was like, oh, damn. Then somebody came on, they're like, oh, a plane hit the Empire State Building in 1944 or something. Maybe it's just an accident. I was like, this isn't an accident. Got back to work, walked into the military intelligence shop because we didn't have TVs everywhere then. So crappy barracks, crappy workspace. And the only TVs were in the military intelligence section. I walked in there and I saw the second plane hit. And I was like, is that a rerun? And everybody was like, no. So was that a rerun of the first attack? Mm-hmm. So saw that. And at that point, I was like, I guess I'm not getting out of the service. And the most important thing I did in my entire professional life was respond to that attack. And went in, went down to Tampa, Florida, where the United States Central Command is, the command that's oversees the Middle East. And the United States Special Operations Command is there as well. So I went down, my boss, who I'd known from a previous assignment, asked me to go down with one sergeant to be the planner. So we get down there. It's called Special Operations Command Central, SOCCENT, Central Command's Special Operations Component. They were out in this old Cold War bunker, ammo bunker. Show up out there. I'm a major, new major, pretty junior. And the counterterrorism task force had taken over. And they're the lead planners. And I'm a Green Beret, so I'm nothing, right? I'm not special mission unit guy. I'm just like, oh, you're like, they called it white soft then, I was white and black soft. Black was the secret, like, SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force and all those folks, right? So they take over the planning space. Fortunately, I knew a buddy and he let me in. So I'm like, shit, Green Beret, man. I figured this stuff out, and I'm in there. And they planned the initial operations where Rangers jumped into that airfield, Objective Rhino out in the desert. You had a guy on that talked about it. And then they also stormed Mullah Omar, who was the head of the Taliban. He had this beautiful compound that he built in Kandahar. They raided that thing, and Omar was gone, but they shot the shit out of the place. It was a brilliant operation. It was kind of our first big operation of the war. Helicopter hard landed, had some bad problems. I don't think nobody got killed. A couple people got injured on some hard landings. So I go down there to help plan. All of a sudden one day, this counterterrorism experts just disappear. They're gone, poof. And somebody yells, "Do we have any Green Berets here?" What do you need? They're like, we need to plan an unconventional warfare campaign. Unconventional warfare is where Green Berets go behind enemy lines. Think World War II France, where small commandos jumped in behind enemy lines, linked up with the resistance, the Maquis, the French resistance, got them ammunition, helped them train, helped plan, and then helped lead them to tear up the German forces that were behind the beaches that we were landing at. That's unconventional warfare. Go behind enemy lines, link up with the resistance force or to overthrow the government. And we had never done that before in the history of special forces. We were founded in 1951. It's like, I know how to do that. So we did the campaign. I was part of the planning element that did the campaign. Then I got to go do it.
You got to do it.
So I always find your replacement. I'm like, I'm going to get stuck down here, missing another war. I missed Panama. I missed Desert Storm. I'd missed everything. And Shawn, you brought it up. You're like, that's Super Bowl, right? You don't join like, oh, I just want to stay here in, Fort Campbell and, take my kids to the daycare center and coach soccer. I missed everything. And I saw it happening again. I'm like, I'm going to get stuck down here while my unit goes and prosecutes this war. Always find your replacement. Got a guy to come in to backfill me. Off I go, pick up the remainder. So the entire group had deployed to Karshi-Khanabad in Uzbekistan, which was our forward operating base or advanced operating base. So we set up in Uzbekistan, which we now know is a toxic waste dump with radiological material. I can go on all day about that. But at the time, we didn't care because we were going to bring vengeance on behalf of the United States, the people of the United States. We are going to bring vengeance to these sons of bitches. So we go to Uzbekistan. The group's over there. I show back up, I'm back. There are 5 A-teams left. A-team is 12 special Green Berets. It's the unit of choice for special forces. You've heard this before. You got 2 weapons experts. You got 2 medical experts that are like doctors. You got 2 engineers that know demolition and construction. You have 2 communicators that know how to do signal, to work the radios. You've got 2 senior NCOs that do intelligence and operations, and then you have 2 officers. You have a warrant officer. And those 12 people go behind enemy lines, and they can lead up to 1,200 indigenous forces, guerrillas. So that's what we're going to do, right? I show up, everybody's gone. We have 5 A-teams left. Get the call, Miller, bring over the final 5 A-teams. Go over, fly over. and get to Uzbekistan. This is Thanksgiving Day of 2001.
You want a killer deal? I've got one for you. A free Moto G 5G phone from Pure Talk. No gimmicks, no trade-in necessary. Just sign up for Pure Talk's unlimited talk, text, and 15 gig data plan for just $35 and get the Moto G 5G phone for free. But here's the deal. You need to move fast because these phones will be gone. So if your current phone is on life support, upgrade for free with Pure Talk. Enjoy 2-day battery life, an exceptional quad pixel camera, and a whole lot more. Just go to puretalk.com/Ryan to get this exclusive offer and to select the plan that's right for your family. Remember, Pure Talk gives you America's most dependable 5G network at half the price, so make the switch today. Go to puretalk.com/Ryan to claim your free Moto G 5G phone with a qualifying plan. Again, puretalk.com/Ryan. Pure Talk. Simply smarter wireless. Those of you that have been around SRS for a while know that we take mental health very seriously here. So seriously that in almost every episode, you'll find a segment where we discuss how to improve your mental health. And part of improving your mental health is keeping your mind sharp. And part of keeping your mind sharp is giving it the fuel that it needs to balance energy, focus, cognition, and just regenerating your brain. That triggered me to go on a journey to find the supplement that supports brain health with the cleanest of ingredients on the planet. And I found it. I was actually going to start my own company and do this, but I found Laird Superfoods. I've partnered with them. Now I'm a partial owner, and I really believe in these products. Here's my favorite product. Performance Mushrooms by Laird Superfoods. Brain fuel. You can put this in your coffee, you can put it in your tea, you can drink it raw, you can mix it with their greens, you can do all kinds of stuff. Bottom line is, this is the best possible supplement with the cleanest ingredients, all sourced in the United States that supports brain health. And here's 2 other products that I'm a fan of. Laird Superfoods Creamer. Guess what? Contains functional mushroom extracts. Put this in your tea or coffee. And most of you know I'm not a caffeine or coffee drinker, but a lot of you are, and they just happen to have Laird Superfoods coffee, organic Peruvian coffee with, you guessed it, functional mushrooms that support and regenerate your brain. Go to lairdsuperfoods.com, use the promo code SRS, you'll get 20% off. Guys, this is the real deal. These are the finest of ingredients. Check it out. LairdSuperfoods.com, promo code SRS, 20% off.
Attack went in, Thanksgiving Day. And then there's this book, Studs Terkel wrote this book called The Good War. It's this book about World War II. And he interviewed his oral history, interviewed all these famous people, senators, titans of industry, all these people that have been fabulously successful. And he asked, what was the most important thing you did in your career? They're like, June 6, 1944. He's an 18-year-old machine gunner in the 1st Infantry Division. They're like, holy crap, you're Speaker of the House of Representatives. Now you're one of the most powerful people in the world. And they're like, none of this compares. That was the most important thing I did. I feel the same way about that operation. You ask, tell me about your career. None of it really matters except that one operation where I was I couldn't believe that I had been given the opportunity to be in the unit, 5th Special Forces Group, which everybody made fun of. Why would you ever go there? There are 5 Special Forces Groups. Why don't you go to 10th Group where you can go to Germany or 7th Group to South America? They're all regionally aligned, and ours is the Middle East. Nobody wants, no offense, I can go to Cartagena in Colombia and make max per diem, $200 a day, have a really good time. Or if you're in the 1st Special Forces Group in the Pacific, hey, Thailand training with Thai Special Forces, that's a pretty good gig, right? Mm-hmm. We had the Middle East. we were the laughing stock. But when the war came to us, I was in the unit that went there, and just at the end of the day, it's just blind chance, work hard, holy cow, pure luck that I was there. But everything else I did in my career, period, doesn't matter.
Well, it's a pretty extensive career. How did that operation go?
We took the Joint Special Operations Commander was responsible for getting bin Laden. Our job in Special Forces was to take down the Taliban. Unconventional warfare. We were overthrowing the government with indigenous forces, resistance forces, guerrilla forces. So our job was to overthrow the Taliban government. They attacked us on September 11th. The government changed on December 7th. So
it happened that fast?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think historically it will go down as the most brilliant irregular warfare, unconventional warfare campaign probably in the history of the world. Hasn't really been studied yet. I'm kind of hoping somebody does some serious study on it. The issue is we ended up losing, right?
Well,
ended up losing.
Before we go the whole length, if you want somebody to study it, then let's dig in right now. So what was step one in your planning process? That's a huge task.
I was intimidated. I had checked this out. At a certain point, if you're an officer, you go to this thing called the Command and General Staff College, usually about 10 years of service, and you go and get your master's degree, and you learn about operational art, big war stuff, right? I got to go to that, Newport, Rhode Island. So I learned that stuff, but then all of a sudden you're having to do it. And you're like, wow, this isn't school work anymore. You know what I got lucky with, though?
What's that?
There was this senior warrant officer. A warrant officer is between a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, and a commissioned officer, a lieutenant, captain, etc. There's this beautiful, and you have them in the Navy SEALs, limited duty officers and petty. Or do you have warrant officers in?
We have warrants.
Warrant officers are they do one thing their whole career, so they become subject matter experts and professionals. Usually they're helicopter pilots or intelligence people. Special Forces also has warrant officers. So they are the continuity. They are the experts on everything. And there was this old grizzled warrant officer, and he was a little bit of an iconoclast. He used to paint one of his pinky fingernail. He would do artwork on it. And I was like, that's moxie. I mean, you've got some throw weight when you can paint your fingernail and nobody says to remove the fingernail polish. This guy was a genius. And I said, Chief, what do I do? You know what come on, sir. So he had it. He figured it out. We worked together over 2 nights. And because we were moving really, really fast, Shawn. We were moving fast. This isn't do a concept development and submit it in 60 days, and then we'll review it and send you back feedback in 60 days. This is and I didn't, they talk about Special Forces like you're going to do strategically important things that will be tracked by the White House. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Come on, save me the public relations campaign. We're doing that. This chief and I are feeding, we're not the ones briefing it, but we're feeding this concept in that literally is not taking 60 days. It's going from us, doom, Pentagon, White House.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got it done, man.
So can we get a little, if we can't, can we get a little, we can, I would love to get a little more elaborate. You've just been tasked with taking out the Taliban government, going behind enemy lines, linking up with a resistance force. Who's the resistance force? How are you going to link up with them? How are you going to overthrow that government? How are you going to insert? This is huge picture. This is big picture, way above my pay grade. How do you start
above
this?
Mine too.
What's step one?
Step one was, what is the resistance potential? Are there any groups that we can link up with that will accept us? And of course, there was this thing called the Northern Alliance. The leader of the Northern Alliance was Ahmed Massoud, who had been killed by this Al-Qaeda attack where they had a deception op where they showed up on the 10th of September with a film crew from some Arabic television station. The film crew, the camera was rigged with explosives. They blew the thing up and killed Massoud, destroying the leadership of the Northern Alliance, right? So there was already in existence this resistance group that was all up north, that was really very segmented, balkanized. They'd been pushed back. They were about to get defeated. So it was pretty simple at that point. Like, we got the north, right? Your point, though, like, how do you get there? My boss at the time was this guy named, he's now retired General John Mulholland. Mulholland, just absolute epitome of commander, gentleman, really, Vince Lombardi, though, really, really hard on you. Like, you're going to perform. He's the commander of the 5th Special Forces Group. And we got to fly helicopters through the Hindu Kush, the Himalaya Mountains, right? To link up with these groups of the Northern Alliance that had been selected. So you got a 12-man A-team up in Uzbekistan. They're going to get on a helicopter. They're going to fly down. They're going to land in the middle of the night, literally middle of the night, on a grid coordinate with the expectation that when they get off that helicopter and they show, they've got the red lens flashlight and go, turn, like, when you come off the helicopter, turn to 62 degrees magnetic and click your flashlight 4 times. This is what these kids are doing.
Man, this is old school.
Dude,
I remember these
Shawn,
days.
This is old school. You know what our GPS were? We bought Garmin E-Trex. It was the first generation of commercially available GPS. Government, what did the military have? They had this huge, like, Lotran, like, GPS things that were this big, remember? And you only got like one of those per 400 people, right? You didn't have that. We all had these first generation E-Trex, but that was about as technologically sophisticated as we had. But here's where I was going with this. Mulholland is getting his ass beat by the Pentagon because each night the weather conditions would collapse and he wouldn't launch forces and helicopters because he's like, they're going to crash, right? And that's moral courage. Can you imagine? He's an 06. That's relatively junior person in the whole scheme of things. We have 4-star generals. He's in charge of the response, an 06 colonel of special forces. And he keeps saying no to, they call it infiltration, as you know, right? Conditions don't match. We're going to lose a helicopter. Finally, skies open, and we make our first successful infill. The guy horse soldiers go on all day. But Mulholland, I understand the Pentagon was planning to fire him because they didn't think he was aggressive enough. Who is the SecDef? Rumsfeld's the Secretary of Defense. Rumsfeld comes out to Uzbekistan several weeks later. Mulholland has him fly on a 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment MH-47 Chinook-like helicopter, big helicopter, the route that the first infiltration went in. There are pictures of them. You can find them online. Shawn, they're literally going through canyons like this with 10 feet on each side of the rotor, because remember how high it was. Mm-hmm. They're already flying at, you can probably get, I don't know, we're going to get some comments about, you don't know what an MH-47 is capable of, but it's like 20,000 foot bird. These things are working at the absolute extreme end of the envelope because they're in the Himalayas, right? And then anecdotally, and I think it's true, Rumsfeld goes, "Oh, I get it now." Yeah. Like, he's terrified. So we get in there, right? The boys get in there, link up, and then it's game on. And big army, big military. I think the whole plan was like, this is going to take, the whole idea was we would get resistance potential and we would winter over, because they're like, no one's ever won in Afghanistan in the winter. And the idea was that we would link up with the Northern Alliance, make an enclave, secure enclave in the north, because there's this key bridge that runs between Uzbekistan, Freedom Bridge. I forgot the name of the river. I forgot all this stuff. But this key bridge, and then the military was going to bring down an armored division by rail. Then they're going to get off. They're going to move this armored division across this bridge, and then in the spring, we were going to march on Berlin again. It was going to be great. Tanks going through that tunnel. Did you know that was the plan?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm not making this up, man. So wow. We're Green Berets. We're going to exploit success, and we're going to exploit success every place we get. And you've done Afghanistan. Once you have the momentum, everybody started surrendering. You got Green Berets. They got their Afghan Northern Alliance forces. You got B-52s coming over. You've heard these stories where there would be a Taliban-controlled town or Al-Qaeda-controlled town. Green Berets with their guerrillas would show up. The guerrillas, they all had ICOM radios, very simple, like walkie-talkies, essentially, right? They would talk to the Taliban or Al-Qaeda force, who they already knew because it was their cousin or something. They're like, hey, man, shit's up for you guys. You really want to do this? Well, we have to, save face. So they'd be like, the Taliban, shoot a little, and then we just, our guerrillas would just, lay into them, and then you drop ordnance all around them. You want to keep doing this because the next sortie is coming right on you. You see what we can do? They're like, we're done. So we got momentum, right? We're just moving, but the problem's the South. So we get to Baghdad. Oh my God, all these names. Is that hilarious, dude? hit Kabul. Get the Bagram, which is the major air base Soviet setup. Okay, we got the north. Problem's the south, dude. That's where Mullah Omar headed the Taliban. Their government capital is in Kandahar. You've been. And we're like, oh, damn. No Northern Alliance up there. There were some elements down there, Gulagashirzai, Karzai, who saw which way things are going. They're like, okay, when do we get some Green Berets? It's game on, dude. So we went down there. I went in. I make fun of this, but it's true. Assault landing credit. You familiar with the assault landing credit? You get a special badge if you are in a initial assault, it's D-Day stuff. You get a special, if you rolled into D-Day on June the 6th, 1944, you got a special ribbon. It's called assault landing credit. It's a big deal, man. It's one of those, if you see somebody with that ribbon, you're like, they're the real deal. It's not an everyman medal. Assault landing credit ended on, I think the 5th of December of 2001. They say 200 people, 200 intelligence officers from CIA paramilitary and special operators from the military, 200 of us are credited with defeating the Taliban. Dude, I am 199. I landed at literally the equivalent of 23:59:59 on June 6, 1944, where all the fighting's over, bodies in the water. I'm just I was literally the second to last person to land in Afghanistan to be part of that 200. So I want to be very, very clear. I'm such a small part of that operation. I got in at literally the last moment. We dropped on December 5th, we accidentally dropped a 2,000-pound joint direct attack munition bomb on our own position. I'm at Uzbekistan. I had established a quick reaction force with the team I was with. On that day, I I had been desperate to get a mission. And I see the war ending, right? It's very easy to see the war's coming to an end. And I'm like, it's happening again. And every day I would go in and write up a concept of operation and try to sell it to the leadership. Like, we really need to go in, we really need to go in to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's having no luck. And it was December 5th. I got up that morning and I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm failing. We had this crappy tent for a gym with this like shitty Bowflex. Remember the Bowflex things? And Shawn, it had this exercise bike. Like they must have got it at J.C. Penney's in like 1965. This thing. It couldn't run because the Air Force Red Horse engineers that set up the camp had used these huge stones, like not gravel. The gravel was like this big. You couldn't run because you'd break your ankle. So I'm on that stupid exercise bike. It's dark out, freezing. Then I go to the Bowflex thing, and I walk back to go to the chow hall because I was done for the day. You know what all my guys were doing? You know what all the guys were doing? They brought this huge big screen TV. Like this was before flat screens. It was the one, that weighs like 600 pounds. Mm-hmm. Remember those things?
Oh,
with the vacuum, with the tube in back? They sat there. They set that up in our tent and they watched every episode. It was still CDs. It wasn't Netflix. They watched every episode of The Sopranos, Friends, you name it. And here I am working, right? And they're just screwing off. They're like, screw the major, he'll figure this out. So that day I was going to watch the doggone Sopranos with everybody. And as I'm going to the chow hall, I see this frenzied activity over at the operations center. And I walk over and they said ODA 574's, which was the A-team, 12-person A-team that was with Karzai's forces, just called, they've got mass casualty. I was like, oh, damn. Okay, what's going on? And I listened, and the kid, Jason Amarine, is the team leader. Dude, did you ever see this? I read once about you can tell a true leader because the more pressure they're under, the calmer their voice is.
I have.
I'm not that way, man. I'm screechy. I'm like, the world's coming to an end. Help me. I hear Jason on the radio, and I knew Jason. He was team leader in the company I commanded. We had 6 A teams. He was the team leader of the free fall team. And Jason gives a situation report over the radio, like absolutely as if he was talking on the phone to his girlfriend, just completely smooth. I was like, I got emotional, man, still do. And it was like, game on, man. He's like, we have been hit by a large explosive. They didn't know at the time it was a friendly fire. I've got 3 dead. Everybody's wounded. Boom, 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 boom. Just going down the list. I was like, okay, that's what we make the quick reaction force for. Walked over to the tent. All the fellas are like watching Sopranos. I was like, get your shit on. And I'm like a happy-go-lucky guy, right? And I'm like laughing and joking and all. And they looked up at me. And they're like, ha, ha, ha. They thought it was a joke. I was like, I'm not bullshitting. Get your shit on, we're going. And then you can kind of see like people. And then the team starts like, get your shit on, let's go. And we flew down there and replaced the destroyed team. And then went to Kandahar and ended the war 2 days later.
Damn.
Well, ended the war. I should say we ended that phase of the war.
Yeah.
That was way too long of a story, man. You need to give me you can edit all that crap out.
What happened when you got down there?
Hit town, landed. All right, so I'm in Uzbekistan. We need to get to Kandahar. That's like, what is that? Like 2,000 miles? It's a long ass way. We get on to an MC-130 Special Operations Combat Talon Special Operations C-130. We get on the truck. We're all sitting there. And all of a sudden, the supply sergeant comes running out and starts giving us stuff. Like, hey, here's your radios. Got our blood shits, remember? You know, like when you go into combat, you have your blood shit, your get out of jail free card. Like if, you know, please, we will pay you, what is it, $1 million now or whatever? You know what I'm talking about? So we're getting this in the back of this 2.5 ton truck. We're all lined up in there. We've got our kit. I take my rucksack. Nobody else does. They take I take my sleeping bag. Like, so, Shawn, I'm the guy with this big ass rucksack. Everybody else has 3-day pack. This is before this great kit that we have now. I mean, this is like pretty rudimentary. We're sitting there. We're like, okay, let's go. Supply sergeant starts giving us this stuff out. I'm like, wow, this is just great. We finally get all our kit when we're getting on the helicopter going to combat. But that's all right, man. We got some radios, got our crypto, you know, all that crap. Drive out to the MC-130, ramps down, get on that thing in Uzbekistan, and there are a whole bunch of dudes on there already. All right, I don't know about you, man, but the way I was trained was like train how you're going to fight and all that stuff. It's like, I'm like, whatever. We get on, about 20 of us, and we're flying, dude. And it's a long flight, man. It's a long way. We're going to fly into Rhino, which is the Marines Rangers had dropped in on Rhino, which was this airstrip in the middle of the desert that the Middle Eastern or Persian Gulf royalty would fly out to. It was a private airstrip where they would go falconing. I'm not making this up.
Really?
I'm not making this up. So we captured, Marines came up, captured that. So we're going to fly in to Objective Rhino, which is now an airstrip. It's a long-ass flight. And then I'm sitting there, and the pilot goes, "Who's in charge here?" I kind of look around. You've been in this, like, you never want to hear who's in charge, right? Nothing good's going to come from who's in charge, right? It's like, shit, I guess I am. Then I realize who the other people are. It's a forward surgical team. These are all doctors. So because we had a mass casualty. So they loaded up, and going to the guns, right? You got to love that, right? Like, these dudes are like, there's some Americans in need. We're going. I don't even know if they had approval, to tell you the truth. I don't care. So you got all these doctors and medical technicians, and they all outrank me. I was like, shit, they're not real. They are real officers, but they're not tactical officers. So I pull out. You remember your Right in the Rain pad? Remember?
Yeah, the green notebook.
The green notebook. Pull my pad out. I'm sitting there, and I still have this. I write mission. I can't remember what it is. We will infiltrate to defeat Taliban. Blah blah blah. Commander's intent. You know, I just do a really quick field order, really quick. Signed it, and then I just handed it off to the person. I said, "Pass it around." So everybody reads this thing. It comes back to me. I looked at it recently. It was like the worst operation order I've ever written. I mean, it was pathetic. But I was like, I have to make sure everybody knows what's going on and what we're going to do here and get everybody focused. Fly, fly, fly. You're like, what are you going into, right? And we landed at Objective Rhino. We're going to get off. We're going to run across about 75 meters to two MH-53 best helicopter ever made, special operations helicopters. We're going to get on those. We're going to fly to north of Kandahar, where the mass casualty was. We would get off. Casualties would get rolled on. We would then replace them and continue to fight. So we get down there to doggone. Man, I'm talking too much.
No, keep going.
We get down there to Objective Rhino. I flash back to Ranger School, and I was like, I'll be the last one off the MC-130 because one of these morons is going to leave something important. They're going to forget something. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
It's like, so they all get run off. it's like talcum powder, brown. You've been in brownout.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. Like where it's literally, you can't see the sun. There's so much because those C-130 engines are ripping, 53 rotors. This is like, it's dark. It's just really, you can't see shit. They literally go off into the dust. I'm with my Surefire, checking everything out. Okay. Nobody left anything, or somebody actually did leave something, but I was like, it's not that important. I was worried. So I go jump off the back of the C-130, and I'm running, thinking I'm pretty cool, Shawn. Like, thinking like, this will work in the movie. Step in a pothole full of, couldn't see it right because it was full of dust. I just flipped, dude. And I was like, oh shit, I just broke my ankle.
Oh, damn.
Have you broken any?
No.
I was like, damn. I'm like, and I look, and this Marine, no t-shirt, wearing those, remember those shitty tanker goggles?
Yeah.
Comes running up because he sees me flip. He's right near me. He's like, Jesus Christ, are you all right? And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna hurt. Then he sees my rank because I had my rank on, and of course, like a true Marine, he's like, oh my God, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm like, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. Shawn, I look back, so I'm lying there, C-130 ramp down. I'm looking into that. I'm like, I could just get back onto that plane and just fly back to Uzbekistan and be done with this whole thing. I clearly have injured myself, right? I was like, it probably was a nanosecond, but it seemed like this really drawn out, like, playing the whole video. And then I'm like, you dumbass, get going. Literally stumble onto the helicopter. All I can remember from medical training is don't take off your boot. Remember? Because it'll start swelling. I was a dumbass, and I didn't have my med kit I had it in my back.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know what we were doing then, dude. We didn't know what we were doing. I had my medical kit. I'm crammed onto this 53. I can't move. Certainly can't even get to it's so loud, I can't tell somebody, hey, can you give me my medical kit? I'm like, I'm just going to ride this one in. We fly. And what I remember, I have photos of this. Like the helicopter, you would feel like your pressure was going down, like you were getting jammed into your seat. And then all of a sudden you go weightless. No seats in this. This isn't training anymore. You're not belted in. Now you have those hooks that you hook into. We didn't have any of that crap then. It was just like, man. And then I realized special operators never fly during daylight. And we're doing a daylight mission. So they're doing nape of the earth because the idea is the lower you can get. I don't know why we do this in the desert. I get it when you're doing it in the forest. The idea is you fly so low that they can't shoot at you or a surface-to-air missile can't lock on before you pass over. I'm like, I don't think that shit's going to work in the desert. But hey, far be it from me, right? We were doing Cold War tactics, right? Mm-hmm. They fly nape of the earth, and then how they had the mountains? They'd like that, and that would be us getting pushed into the chair. And then, dude, you would come off the knife's edge. I don't know, it was probably 10 feet. It felt like you could have reached out and touched the ground. And then they would just dump it right back, and then you'd go weightless, right? It was like that vomit comet thing for the astronauts. And I was like, okay, this is the real deal here, man. This isn't training anymore, flat and level.
Yeah.
We land, get out. I'm, no shit, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon is what I thought. We get off that thing. I'm looking around. It's the Stone Age, man. I was like, holy shit. And linked up. There was a CIA officer there. So we get off the helicopter. You know what you're supposed to do? Set up like a perimeter. You know how you run off and you throw yourself down. And there are thousands of Afghans just rambling around. That's not a training scenario you get at Bud's, is it?
Mm-mm.
Or at a workup?
No.
I've never seen this scenario. We're like, well, are we supposed to shoot these motherfuckers? What are we supposed to do? And I'm like, we're not going to do a damn thing. So I said, I just walked off, said, come on, let's go. And now this is the leadership thing where I know the fellas are like, Miller, we always knew he was an idiot. We always thought he was an idiot. Now we know he's an idiot because we're not doing the playbook. I just walked down, I see a road. I walked to the road and we just sat down next to the road, had a cigarette, just sat there. Commo guy puts his radio up, tries to make comms, nothing. Doggone pickup truck, Hilux comes whipping by. This guy, legendary CIA officer, who I won't refer to here, but you've met, with this great bushy mustache, goes, hey, cowboy, need a lift? You could knock me over with a feather, right? So surrealistic. I'm like, yeah, we do. We load up in the truck. We go down to where Karzai is in this schoolhouse. 2,000-pounder came out on this hill right above him. There's a schoolhouse. There's a medical clinic. Karzai got a mirror fell and cracked him in the head or some crap, whatever. But we get to the schoolhouse and we're like, Karzai, he's going to be the next president of this country. Taliban are that way. Got a mass casualty. We get off. They start hauling. There are two other 53s. So we get off and we see over here, they're moving all the casualties onto these two other birds. So we didn't backfill them like we planned. I didn't care at that point, right? And final point, it's like, so you're in combat now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Got a bum leg already. I'm limping around. I'm like, oh my God, this is quintessential Chris Miller. Like, oh, gee, I finally get to the big show and hurt myself. It's all right. So we put in, everybody was obviously pretty shattered, either injured, concussed. Well, that same thing, you know what I mean? But the force that was there we're like, we just got to give them some time off. So we put in security around there, right? And I remember jumping into this hole. You know where this goes. It's like, this is a good fighting position. That's where the JDAM hit. And I remember looking down, Shawn, and I was like, who the f***'s been eating hamburger out here?
Oh, man.
Dude, I didn't know that that's what happened to human flesh or human body when it's eviscerated. And I was like, damn, this is for real. And so that was my arrival in Afghanistan. We moved on the capital of, it was, I always like to say we captured, I captured Kandahar. Dude, it was just like we just drove. There was no resistance. The enemy was defeated, and the war that stage of the war ended a couple days later.
Damn. Let's take a quick break.
Sure.
When we come back.
I'm spending too much time on silly stuff, I know.
No. It's good. It's good. Let's take a quick break. Next on The Shawn Ryan Show.
The leader of ISIS was Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
So what I have to say to all my loved ones in Prescott is that I will always love you.
I mean, I usually don't do good and evil. When you're talking about your enemy, I don't think it's helpful. I think it colors your judgment.
I've been here too long. I've been very sick, and it's very terrifying here. My name is Kayla Mueller. I need your help.
This guy was the definition of evil. He was an evil man.
He kept her in his captivity, his personal captivity. She was a beautiful woman, beautiful young woman. Helped people. She was there to help people.
Baghdadi, evil of evil. But everybody's looking for him. His tradecraft is really good.
He would burn people alive, behead them, put kids in cages,
when our intelligence officers put their mind to it, and our special operators put their mind to it, you can run, but you can't hide.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.